Hey man, this week's episode is brought to you by the SCPS. You don't trust the government to keep you safe or make laws that protect your freedom. So why should you trust those greedy fat cats to deliver your mail? You shouldn't. The SCPS, or Sustainable Courier Pigeon Service, is the new sustainable, responsible, and awesome way to send your communicado. Our goal is to provide every free-thinking American person with their own personal courier pigeon. A lot of people think pigeons are just rats with wings, but that's totally unfair. And according to Wikipedia, they're super smart. Plus, they used them in the Vietnam War or World War I or something. So we know they can be trained to do this kind of work. Now, for just 12 easy payments of $200 per month, you can get your own fully trained courier pigeon that won't pollute the air like those mail trucks, those planes, and the unreliable robots Uncle Sam uses to deliver your precious messages. We're currently working on grant applications to get government subsidy to help bring down the cost. But can you really put a price on freedom? Didn't think so. We'll be at the corner of State and Adams in downtown Chicago this Saturday with a sign-up sheet taking orders. Mention you heard about SCPS on MindGap Podcast to get a free bag of bird food with your first pigeon. Sustainable Courier Pigeon Service. It's time to take back our freedom. This week's podcast is brought to you by Elephant and Castle, located at 185 North Wabash and 111 West Adams in Chicago, Illinois. Look, I know you've been looking for that perfect English pub experience so you can grab some incredible drinks and tasty food. You've told me about it. I know you're looking for it. Well, Elephant and Castle has you covered. They have excellent daily drink specials, happy hours Monday through Friday from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m., and some delicious food for you to chew on while you watch some sports or talk to your friends or do whatever. So come down to Elephant and Castle at 185 North Wabash or 111 West Adams in Chicago and tell them that MindGap Podcast sent you. Hey, gang, what's going on? On this episode of MindGap Podcast, I start off by telling Doug about a theory one of our past guests shared with me regarding the United States and the fact that it's never really been invaded as an act of war. Doug then asks if I've seen the trailer for the new Sony movie Morbius set in the Spider-Verse, and from that, the chatter in the Twitch stream sparks a lengthy conversation about if superhero movies, specifically Marvel movies, have helped kill Hollywood. Whew, it's a debate. With that, Counselor, please prepare your opening statements, get your arguments in order, and strap in for episode 231 of MindGap Podcast. Doug, say the thing!
MindGap Podcast.
All of a sudden, we got a couple two-tree farts in here, and then the Depeche Mode gets turned up. What's going on? Huh? What is this?
You
the fuck's going on?
You plan on chewing that gum the whole time?
Huh? What are we doing? What are we doing over here?
Oh my god.
Huh? You like that?
No, I don't.
A couple two-tree times?
I don't.
Huh?
Nope.
What are we doing?
Nope.
Here we go.
Oh, dude, my stomach is a little bit on fire here.
Can you please, just for my sake, just not fart while during
no promises.
God damn it.
I literally was just 5 drops in there, and my tummy's like, woof, woof. It tasted good.
Why do you do it to yourself?
I was like, I'll take a little bit of heat. It wasn't that much. I'm such a white person. I'm just like, oh, it's a little hot.
There we go.
There's this wonderful clip of TV news bloopers. It was 35 minutes. I watched it a couple years ago, and one of the segments was this older white man anchor who's losing his mind. They ate something spicy. He's like, it's so hot. And there's this woman from Ethiopia, his co-anchor, and she's just sitting there it's not that hot. He's like, what's wrong with you? She goes, I was raised in Ethiopia. And he was so mad at her that she was not fazed by it at all.
She wasn't fazed by it?
And she's just staring at him. He's like,
what a truly terrible thing to do.
Oh, it was so funny. I loved it because I feel that's Natalie's kind of like that right now. She just doesn't like pepper. I always just say, stop being so white. I was like, be whiter, Natalie. Come on.
Fix this.
I was like, it's pepper. I'm not saying let's put some hot sauce on there. She's like, it's spicy. I'm like, no, it's not. I was like, it's flavored. Get it out of here. Sometimes she'll see something that's been cooked, like it has like some cooked flecks on it or something like that, and she'll be like, is it spicy? I'm like, no, it's just the way it was cooked. Jeez.
I distinctly remember that point where I would see something. Well, you're still in that point.
Oh, yeah.
Where you would see
absolutely.
You would see
There's onions in here.
What is that? What is that flake? Is that a fucking onion? Get that out of here. I don't want this. I distinctly remember that where you would see something on the, it was like a char mark, or you would see like a piece of oregano, and you're like, oh God, this is like fancy. What is this? What is this? I don't trust it.
I'm starting to realize my parents' frustration with me and my food, like growing up, because my parents would just be like, God, he won't eat anything.
I have a frustration. I realize your parents' frustration with you and food.
I know. But the only thing I'm thankful
for...
At
36, I realize that.
Hey, I'm thankful because at school, Natalie gets exposed to a lot of different stuff all the time, which I'm like, great. And she seems to be doing a good job with that stuff. Good. I just probably don't reinforce it at home, I try to, broaden her horizons a little bit. She's really good at vegetables and fruits, so I'm very happy with that.
That's fantastic.
She loves that stuff.
Daddy, I tried onions today. Cut to next day, Doug makes a call and pulls Natalie out of school.
It's cut to you're not going, just scrubbing her teeth.
You're not going back to that school.
I was like, good, you eat them so I don't have to.
Bunch of fucking heathens at that school.
I love how much she loves fruit. All
really?
The time. Like, whenever I go to the grocery store, I get 1 or 2 pieces of fruit, like just for her.
See, that's awesome. I love. Like, is there? And she's willing to try kind of whatever fruit wise.
She kind of goes through phases. She really likes cantaloupe. She likes watermelon. She likes pineapple. She likes raspberries. She likes blackberries. Okay. She likes pears.
Nice.
Apples, oranges. Like she does.
It's a fucking great lineup, man.
She loves corn, peas, carrots, green beans. Like she's pretty good with vegetables for the most part.
It's a great
like,
lineup.
I try to we have some like steamable vegetables. I'm like, here you go. Dad's not eating it, but here you go. Right. Like just for you.
Oh, Dad already did his time.
Although I do, I have like zucchini and mushrooms, and she's not down for that. But I'm like, Dad is
right.
Black olives. I go to town on those.
Does she not do the black olives on her fingies?
No, I don't think we haven't tried that yet. So.
Oh, you should, dude. That's how I got into olives.
Yeah,
little olive fingers. Yeah.
Oh, that reminds me. We visited Jill's dad recently.
That and bugles.
Bugles were great for my fingers are too big now, but maybe on my pinky. He had like 5 jars of green olives instead of being normal pits of whatever it is.
Tell me.
A whole clove of garlic.
There it is.
I was like, no, thank you.
What?
He's like, you don't want that? I'm like, no, it's just sitting there pickled with
a
big old thing of garlic. I'm like, nah. He gave me one. He took the garlic out. He goes, here you go. I took it. And I was like, oh my God. It was so strong. I was like, ha!
Have you had green olive? Is that the first time you've seen green olive stuffed with something other than a pimento?
Yeah.
So like I love green olive stuffed with jalapeno.
Okay.
Green olive stuffed with blue cheese.
Okay, I'd go for.
Or I think I've seen cheddar in there before, like a white cheddar or something. There was something else that I've had it stuffed with. I love stuffed olives. So good.
See,
I'll eat far too many of them.
I like garlic, but I don't like it raw like that.
Yeah.
I prefer it cooked down or something like that because it's too oniony. If that's the case, who's talking?
The garlic is too oniony?
Because it's an onion, basically.
I don't think that's accurate.
It's from an onion family, more or less. It comes from the ground. You look at a piece of garlic and look at an onion. Tell me they're not at least cousins.
Okay, Doug. Look at a cat and look at a dog. They both have tails and 4 legs.
Okay, that's not even true. That's not even true. Pull that up.
Dogs do not have tails. Fuck you. Jared says, "Yay, Mind Blast podcast."
Yeah, we're welcome to Mind Blast.
Yeah, this is Chris Felucci's favorite podcast called Mind Blast Podcast.
Yeah, so Chris Felucci reached out to Jared Urbis because he was gonna.
He's in Australia.
He's in Australia, and he wanted to look Jared
He's
up
in Perth
while he was there, and he said, "Hey, Jared, I know you're a fan of Mind Blast Podcast." And it's like, Felucci, you've been on here like, what, 3 or 4 times?
FYI, Felucci is effectively banned from Mind Blast Podcast moving forward.
Yeah, Mind Blast will cease to exist.
Yep, for Felucci, as far as Felucci is concerned.
Yeah.
And Adult Moment says, Doug.
Dog. Yeah, man, we're excited to be here. It's been a week.
It's been a week. You know? That is an accurate statement.
I feel like I haven't seen you in a long time. Is that accurate?
We recorded...
Last Tuesday.
Was Was it Tuesday? Yeah, it was last Tuesday.
It feels like it's been like 2 weeks.
It's been one day over a week.
I feels like it's been 2. I feel like so much has happened in such a short amount of time.
It probably has. I mean, dealing with dumb dickery all over the place.
Dumb dickery.
Hickory dickory dock. Go fuck yourself.
Hey, all day. Who needs the time?
Who needs the time?
Yeah, it's like hickory dickory dock. The mouse ran up your clock. Clock stuck 12, and then AIDS.
So Wayne Parham was talking to me today.
Wayne, what's up?
I haven't heard from Wayne in a while, huh?
What's he up to?
He's taking German class. He's singing still.
Yeah, he's a great singer.
He's writing the music for a new play that his theater company's putting on. He's the musical director for this play.
Tuda Theater?
Tuda Theater.
Yeah.
Doug's favorite theater in the also something Doug's representing right now.
Maybe.
And
the Red Tuda Theater.
Thank you.
the Red Mists.
Right, yeah. Brought to you by Halal Guys. And still working, 9 to 5. But he came by today, and he was talking with me. And I can't remember exactly how we got around to it. Oh, I brought up to him the concept of what you and I talked about a few episodes back of with gender fluidity kind of becoming more and more prevalent as far as like being accepted and talking point and like just becoming more readily accessible in our like lexicon. I said around the world we might be seeing a shift in male and female like nouns
pronouns,
and stuff in pronouns and language. And he was like, "Oh, that is an interesting thought." He goes, it would take generations probably. He goes, but it's definitely an interesting thought. He goes, the thing is like with the U.S., with other cultures, they've got thousands of years of it being ingrained, whereas the U.S. is like the teenager of everything. And then that led him to say, he goes, around the world, the conversation about that is far less prevalent than it is in the U.S. itself. And he said, basically, he said the U.S. thinks of itself as kind of like the leader of a lot of stuff. And he's like, most of the rest of the world is in a completely different place than the U.S. And they're like, he's like, of what's being talked about, what's being thought. And then he brought up this, and I was like, I'm going to say this. I just want to see what Doug. I'm going to drop it, and I'm going to step back and just see what Doug thinks about it. He said one of the biggest problems with the U.S.'s ability to function responsibly in the world is because we've never been invaded.
My response to that would be watch Christopher Nolan's new movie Tenet coming out 2020, and then Wayne and I can discuss that.
I was legitimately thinking back to the trailer. I'm like, do we get invaded in that movie?
Wayne hates Christopher Nolan.
Yeah.
But tell him.
Now I get it, yeah.
He can come back after we watch that, and we can talk about it. So he's saying that because we've never been invaded.
Basically, he goes, if you look at most of Europe, Europe proper, he goes, they've destroyed themselves 27 times over. He goes, that's why Europe is more inclined and adept to peace and peace talks than the U.S. ever is. The U.S. is war first, everything else second.
Yeah. And Europe is surrounded by many different countries, so they're essentially like the United States over there.
Right.
I'm sure people will be like, fuck you. I'm like, okay, a collection
conceptually, yes.
A collection of countries that are basically under a union.
If each one of our states were, right.
An individual country, which it kind of is. But so I would say...
He's saying because when people get invaded, he goes, it actually makes the... And again, this is Wayne talking. This is not me. I'm only half remembering what he's like. I'm sure he had an entire argument behind it, but he said something to the effect of, when a country gets invaded, it makes them better. He goes, because they learn more about themselves, learn more about, like, he goes, basically, America is operating completely untouched, unscathed, no outside influences coming into it. It is the teenager going, I don't need to listen to you, to the rest of the world.
I mean, I definitely think there's some...
I think it's an extreme statement.
Yeah, no, I think it's kind of like the thing of like, how can you, or it was from Fight Club, where Tyler Durden goes, I don't trust a guy who's never been in a fight.
Sure, yeah.
Because how can a guy really know who he is unless he's been in a fight? And so to a certain extent there, like, I get it. I mean, you look at most of those countries, World War I, World War II, I mean, go back even further in Middle Ages and stuff like that.
Really, no war has been brought to American soil outside of. I mean, and someone. So I brought this up to a couple of people, and they're like, Pearl Harbor. I'm like, that was an attack, not an invasion. Mm-hmm. So no one really stormed our country and fighting didn't
occupied us.
You're right. Yeah. And then someone said, they said Civil War. I was like, well, that was internal. Mm-hmm. They said Revolutionary War. I was like, that was really still us separating. Then someone brought up the War of 1812, where the British came in. Basically, as a big we're going to piss on you. They burned down the Capitol. They did take the war to us. I don't know much about the War of 1812, but that's the only.
And that right there is, I'm like, okay, what happened in the War of 1812?
I don't know.
No one knows
because we're terrible as Americans. We're terrible at history.
That was so long ago, and I would argue, like some people are like, it's not that long ago. I'm like, it was 200 years ago, and if you look at the
math checks out.
Thank you. If you look at the time that has what has eclipsed, and that the year 1200 to year 1400 is I'm trying to conceptually say this, less time passed in that time than the 1812 to 2012. So much more has happened technologically and everything like that that we've been able to exceed a lot of those sorts of things, so that the chance of invasion, I guess you could say, diminished significantly after that. Once the U.S. is established and everything like that, it would be incredibly difficult to take over the U.S. because of how large it is and everything like that. And also, it's got to the point where land and expansionism and stuff like that took a different thing now. Like, to own land and to occupy stuff still exists. Obviously, Russia annexed Crimea and stuff like that to get oil and things like that. But the idea of this is our land, this is our empire. The empire is digital now.
Right.
The whole landscape has changed. So
what's interesting to me is to think of the concept of even in more recent times, Vietnam, Korean War, World War I, World War II, any of the smaller skirmishes. It's all the Iraq War, Gulf War, all of that has been overseas, taken to other countries. Mm-hmm. Is it? It's obviously it's possible to invade another country. It's been done many times in recent history. It's interesting to me that America has never been occupied or invaded. Now, for the record, I also don't necessarily think that the best thing for us is to be invaded. I say that with a ha-ha because I think part of what this is too is just that America is so young, and part of our culture is built off of war. We're just assholes. We really are just kind of assholes.
Born out of a revolution,
right? But anyway,
I would also say that it wouldn't really be advantageous to anyone to physically occupy the land. There's not the cost is not worth the reward for that at all. There's no point for someone to invade and hold it, in my opinion. In my very
trying to figure out how that would even work.
Well, that's the thing is also, I've talked about Warhammer 40K in the past, and there's this group called the Orcs, and how essentially the only thing they're good for is fighting. And if they don't have anything to fight, they fight each other.
Sure.
If you want to unite the Orcs, invade America, because we're basically the Orcs. And if you give us a singular thing to fight, it's on. You want to unite the country?
We'll tear each other apart.
You want to unite the country? Fucking invade us. See what happens. Every asshole in the world with the guns, we will unite and be like, fuck these guys. And it's on. It is on like Donkey Kong. And that's
it's the same concept of when you say alien invading Earth.
Like the end of Watchmen.
Watch every nation come together. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it doesn't, and I'm sure someone has a very more sophisticated way of describing that, but in my mind, there's no good way to, if you do that, it's only going to be problematic. And what are you going to get out of it? A part of the territory, all the territory? There's no real reason to do it. Just like it wouldn't make sense for us to invade North Korea, or invading doesn't make sense anymore. Excuse me.
I agree. You are just on the struggle bus today.
I'm not.
This halal guy.
It's coming out. That was the start.
Oh boy.
Halal guys mixed with Diet Dr. Pepper. This episode and Bloody Farts brought to you Diet Dr. Pepper and Halal guys. Also roti. I had that for lunch. So double Mediterranean, baby. Woo woo!
So anyway, just an interesting thought by a very controversial voice who was
that should have been the minute.
Right. I you know what? That should have been. I apologize.
But I appreciate that. That was very cool.
Yeah.
To kind of think about things that are tough, hard to imagine, and probably unsuccessful. Sony released a new trailer for a movie called Morbius in the Spider-Man universe.
And the Jack Spider-Man universe?
The Jack Spider-Man. And it stars Jared Leto and some other folks. And I got to say, it was, to me, a very disappointing trailer. Not that I had any expectations, but it was bad.
The only thing I know about Morbius is from the 90s Spider-Man cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
Thought it was an alright character in there. Didn't see him that much in that. I love how it says from the studio that brought you Spider-Man Homecoming and Spider-Man Far From Home. And
let's start there. Let's start there.
Ooh.
I immediately go. I immediately
disagree.
I out loud said, "Nuh-uh." Nuh-uh.
Nope, false. False.com.
No. You didn't. No.
Right.
That's a technicality, motherfucker. Right. You guys co-financed it. Marvel produced it. So let's get our facts straight, motherfucker. Right. Like, how dare you? How dare you? You shared that.
Right.
You shared that, sir. You do not get to try to tout that to sell tickets to the shit show.
I thought this was something we shared.
And I'm not like that, motherfucker. And I don't want to be like the negative Nancy guy, but I look at this as like Jared Leto will never do a comic book movie ever again.
No, I don't. Quite frankly,
I'm shocked.
Not 100% sure why he thought this would be different.
That's Sony, no less, man. Sony is just.
That's what I'm saying. Like with Sony and the Spider-Man, like he's in the industry. He's got to know what's going on. He's got to have seen these movies or heard people. If he doesn't watch them, he's got to hear people go, "Hey, man, probably not a good idea to do this after Joker. After your turn as Joker."
No, I just
remember how pissed off you got at your last movie. It's not going to turn out good.
Well, here's the thing: is it will probably make money because Sony finds a way to make money. Venom was very financially successful.
Life finds a way.
And part of it is people want Venom so bad, but I don't think people want Morbius that bad. And you know
what this is? This is Sony flexing and trying to do the same thing that Marvel did with Guardians of the Galaxy. They're like, we can pull a relatively remotely unknown thing out of the property that we have, and we can make it.
I thought Morbius was a bad guy.
Oh well, it's same as Venom. They're making him an anti-hero.
Oh man, ugh.
He's a reluctant hero.
You know what this feels like? This feels like the late 90s and the early 2000s again, kind of superhero movies. They're just sort of like,
100%.
Hey, you know this character, right?
100%.
And now I say that knowing that we've also, a lot of places have failed miserably trying to do the shared universe stuff.
Right.
I was watching Endgame again yesterday because Natalie wasn't feeling well. And we got home. I was like, here, let's get you some fruit. I'm like, let's watch something. You want to watch Endgame? She goes, yeah, let's watch Avengers Endgame. I'm like, fuck yes, let's do this.
Nice.
I'm just watching it, and I still get goosebumps. I get goosebumps at the opening with Hawkeye. And I get fucking goosebumps when the goddamn portal scene happens. And Jill sent me this little video of, apparently people were watching it in the theater opening weekend, and the entire audience was losing their fucking mind. And it made me laugh and gave me goosebumps.
Right.
Like when Captain America gets the hammer, the crowd's going like, yeah! And then he's doing shit, and when the portal comes out, people are like, yes! Yeah! And I just
And when
there,
he says,
yeah.
assemble. Yeah.
And people are like, woo! As they're all charging. Like I look at that, and I'm like, this is such an accomplishment. I don't know if we'll ever see something like this again. 11 years pulling off a string of successes.
Quite frankly, I don't think I would caution. And this is coming from a reliable source. So Marvel, you can take this to the bank. I would caution Marvel from trying to do this again.
Oh yeah,
I really think they caught lightning in a bottle.
I couldn't agree more. I don't think.
I'm not saying don't do a shared universe, but like this level of thing, I just don't like It was pulled. It was executed flawlessly. And take that as a win. Move on.
I think they can do okay with what they're going to do, but you're never going to capture this again.
No.
Just like, and I'm so thankful that I got to see all of these in the theater. I got to experience this over 11 years,
right? And
getting to watch it all unfold. I'm just looking at Natalie. I'm like, God, you're never really going to fully appreciate this.
She'll have her version of that
of course.
In something.
I mean, and it's like when she gets older, I can't wait to go through every single one.
Sure.
And watch them one after another, and we'll have a blast, and she'll be able to see it all unfold and see how it connects. Because I remember watching Star Wars relentlessly growing up and not knowing much about it. I just enjoyed it. And then all of a sudden I was like, whoa, this is actually Empire Strikes Back's fucking good. And the one movie that Natalie doesn't like to watch that I really want to watch again is Infinity War.
Okay.
Because she doesn't like that one because Thanos beats the shit out of everybody. But I look at
Smart
that,
girl.
I was like, that's such a great film because it sets up Endgame so perfectly. We were in such a devastated emotional state. We're like, in that opening sequence with Hawkeye and his family.
Especially those who didn't know there was going to be a sequel. Hey.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The people dusting away, it's carried over. Just you see the fact that they were able to take it to that point of like, we're at a point of devastation. How are we going to turn it back around?
Right.
And we did it in the most heroic way possible. And I'm like, woo! It's just so good. So that being said, I'm so spoiled by that then when I see something like Morbius, it's not that I don't want to give it a chance. I just feel like it's doomed from the start. I think it's trying. How can you compete?
Right.
And they're not saying they're directly competing with them, but how can you put out a comic book movie nowadays? To my mind, it's like it's Disney World versus any other theme park. Like, how do you compete with that? You have to find your own unique way to do it.
Right.
The New Mutants movie looks like shit, but I appreciate what they were trying to do. We're going to do a horror movie in the comic book universe. Spawn, hopefully, is going to come out at some point. Same thing. Horror, genre, superhero universe. I know that originally they're going to do that with the next Doctor Strange movie, too. It was going to be this sort of, very horror-centric sort of thing. So finding unique ways look at all the different comic books that are out there. I mean, you got things like The Boys. You've got all these other really wonderful titles. I mean, Lock and Key is coming out soon. Unique ways of sort of approaching this stuff and finding a way to do it that is not the Disney way. Don't follow what Disney does.
Right. I agree.
High risk, high reward, but don't bother. Don't do it.
Right. Shit, I had something to say with that.
I talk too much. I'm sorry.
No, high risk, high reward. Don't do it. Don't do it. Find your own way. Oh, even make a standalone. Mm-hmm. Make a single one-off. You don't even have to do we're going to do horror. Just make like Joker.
Yeah.
Now, fuck. Well, of course we're getting a sequel, but I
don't think we need a sequel.
But it's happening. Unfortunately, it's already been greenlit. But that being said, imagine if that just stood by itself. Mm-hmm. Would have been fantastic. Then move on. That would have been something. You've invented. You told this story from a new angle. Great. Put it to bed. Move on.
It's a great single movie.
It really is.
I felt that way about The Matrix when I first saw it. I was like, this is a perfect way to end it. Leave it open-ended and whatever you just imagine. And when I heard they were doing more, I'm like, why? What more do we need to do?
Yeah.
It's like, we don't need to tell the story anymore. It's fine.
And then a movie like Avatar, you didn't even need the first one. Right? Just let that be a concept in someone's head.
Oh, my God.
As they're taking a shower.
Dude.
Just let it happen.
It's so funny that's coming out so much later now. And it's here's a concept art. They're like, it looks like the same thing, but on a beach.
Did you hear what James Cameron said? He's like, I'm confident Avatar 2 will take back first place.
Okay.
He's confident.
Okay.
I was like, oh, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
So
Cameron's hubris in his old age
is amazing.
Is very interesting.
Right. Drew laid something down, and
was it some pipe?
Boom. The last thing he said was, "That's all I'll say about that because I'm saying this in the wrong form." So I'll read back what he laid down. But he immediately was like, "And I'm done." And I said, "No, I love this. We're going to jump into it."
That's not a conversation.
Because I want to.
That's a statement.
Well, he made a statement because he hasn't had that. We're the other side of the conversation. So he said, "Marvel will be the destruction of Hollywood. They have killed the movies. No one goes to see the mid-budget movie anymore because of them." Now, try to be objective as we talk about this, because I know the first thing you go is like, Drew, get the fuck off the street.
The first thing I heard was, wah, wah. No, he's right. No, he's absolutely right, because we've come to expect the amazing blockbuster experience. Well, actually, Drew, if you want, you can blame Spielberg for that and Jaws. I mean, really, that's what started all of this. So we'll go back to that.
Oh, my God.
But
Hammer's been thrown down.
Thor's
hammer. There it is.
Mjolnir has been thrown down. By the way, there's this new book that my old boss got me a book called Thor's Stories that she got from Iceland and gave to me.
Oh, awesome.
And it's now working its way into Natalie's nighttime stories.
That's
and it's
cool,
3
man.
chapters,
Yeah.
3 stories of Thor, and Natalie fucking loves it.
That's cool, man.
I love it so much. And when I'm not there, she will read it to Jill, and she gets a lot of the story right, and it makes me so happy.
Dude, that's so fun.
I love it. Anyway, so I think that I don't know. I don't think there's there's room for them to coexist. You know what I mean? I know studios are looking for that big return. They want to spend $100, $160, $200 million on a movie to get the $1 billion movie return.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I get that. But there are movies out there that are still very successful, but I think maybe, I guess his point being is that they're not willing to take a chance on it because the reward isn't worth it.
Right. Name the last, name 10 movies this year that were made for less than $30 million or $50 million that like had like an impact. It's just like that mid-level movie that you used to get a ton of that were not bad movies. Sure, they were dated because they were from the time that the 90s or the early 2000s, but they weren't bad movies. Like, they were still good movies, and I don't disagree. I'll say this. I don't think Marvel killed these. I don't think Marvel killed the movies, but Marvel helped drive the stake in. I think the movies, this was already, this groundwork was beginning to be laid with, like, Independence Day, like Will Smith, when Will Smith was doing all the blockbuster, the 4th of July man, they used to call it, like, it always used to drop at the 4th of July. I think the groundwork was being laid there. I think Marvel just kind of helped drive the stake in. That's my take on it.
Well, also, I'd argue there are so many other avenues for these stories to be told now
that's the other thing.
Things like Netflix, HBO, Hulu, all those places, like a lot of that content, there's plenty of places for that to exist now and do very well.
I would almost argue, too, that streaming had a hand in that, too, because people just don't go to the movies anymore.
Yeah.
Like, it's very hard to get people to go out to the movies unless you make something. Because who wants to spend? I'm already paying for Netflix and Hulu and HBO and Cinemax and whatever. They're
looking
for where I get my porn.
They're looking for an experience at the movie theater nowadays. And to me, I mean, honestly, what do I go to see? I go to see those big movies because that's what I associate with movies now, with cinema.
I think Scorsese would differ with you, but
that's cool. I'm a nobody. I can say what I want.
No, I think I do think that just the Hollywood in general has changed, and I think part of it is definitely this blockbuster trend. I 100% agree, but I think a lot of it has to do too with the fact that people just don't want to spend. It's gotten so if you don't go to the matinee, it's fucking expensive as shit. Like Bob went to the movies a couple days ago, or I don't know, or a couple months ago, whatever, recently, and someone else bought the tickets. And this person's very into like sound and he's nerdy in that sense, where he's just like, oh, you need the optimal 7.1 Dolby and this and that. So Bob's like, oh, how much do I for the ticket? And he's like, $21. And he goes, what? My ticket by itself, just for me? He's like, how many tickets am I buying for $21? Like, that's an insane amount of money. Yeah. You go and you're going to spend $13 to $15 per ticket, and then popcorn's another $16, and now you're already dropping $30 to $40 for a plus. If you and someone else are going out to the movie, it's really hard to go see movies anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but there's good news, and the good news here that Drew is probably going to appreciate too.
Before you transition,
how do you know I'm transitioning?
Before you transition, do you think it'll ever come back around to? Because I think everything personally is secular.
Okay.
Secular is religious. Secular. Secular.
Time is a flat circle.
That's what I'm trying to say. All right. Time.
I don't think, to quote Joker from The Dark Knight, you've changed things. There's no going back.
I honestly think things come full circle, though. I do think that at some point we will get we're either going to get it back or we've already gotten it back. In the sense that, to your point, like, those movies exist elsewhere now.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think we're going to come full circle because we have avenues that exist that didn't before. So that content, I think, is just...
Those are gonna, I honestly think they're fucking themselves with how many are... Like, they're fractioning... That industry is fractioning themselves off so much that they're fucking themselves. But that's... Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how that turns itself around. But I think there's just so many other ways to consume content now that... It's almost more beneficial to have a release on Netflix or something like that than try to go the typical studio movie theater route. You may get more views than you would In other places, I mean, look at, what was it? There was some, a couple of years ago, a movie called, I think it was Roma or whatever. It was mostly released on Netflix, and everyone got their panties in a bunch because they're like, well, I mean, it was barely released in theaters, and Oscars should be, go fuck yourself. Because for me, it's like, well, who viewed it? Like, shouldn't something that's where I look at Oscars, I'm like, shouldn't we start looking at other things to be consumed as... I mean, you've got Oscar.
Look at A Marriage Story.
Yeah, right. I mean, that
one is burning up right now, and it is, it's a contender for Best Picture. And you
look at shows like Watchmen,
right,
and things that are just critically loved. They're darlings, and they're not necessarily. I mean, I guess you could say it's like, well, it's for an Emmy, but I'm like, I mean, where do you draw the line anymore? All those lines are blurred in my mind as far as like what's considered what. And
I'm curious.
And personally, I also like the fact that, because to Drew's point too, is some of these lesser known films can find life on streaming service because they can reach more communities that normally wouldn't be able to the theater wouldn't show them. I think there was one about what's called Montgomery. I think it was about Alabama and racism and stuff like that. The movie theater in that city of Montgomery, Alabama, did not play the film. They didn't bring it in. They didn't play it. But it was available on Netflix, so other communities who normally would not have access to a movie like this got to see it. Same thing with Roma. It was a sort of a very low-budget film. I think it was also maybe a foreign language or something like that. It had such a nice... ability to get traction where otherwise it would be dead in a movie theater. So, I mean, it's just different now. I wouldn't say Marvel killed it. I just say, to another extent too, maybe this is a cop-out. That's what the audience wants, man. People love it. I mean, people want to go and see these fucking, extravagant stories, these over-the-top things. They want to go see the circus. And I don't know if those medium-budget films can bring in that level of excitement. You know what I mean?
I disagree with that.
Okay.
I vehemently disagree with that, because that's saying that medium budget film. That's saying that you're sacrificing. Yes, Infinity War had a story. Was it a groundbreaking story? No. Was Jojo Rabbit a more innovative story? 100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I disagree that you need a big blockbuster to draw people in and to tell a good, this is what people want. I don't think that's necessarily. People do like the big. It's mindless entertainment. I think I do think that we are suffering a little bit from some of the more not thought provoking, but some of the more nuanced storytelling. Mm-hmm. I definitely think people still hunger for that.
Yeah, well, I'm also not saying that's the only thing that's going to be successful, but I'm saying there's obviously a market there.
Sure.
And again, I think this might be a little bit of a cop-out, but Marvel is feeding that market. You know what I mean? Like, people, there's a demand for it, and they're like, cool. A lot of people like to show up and cover this stuff, and I'm just saying, not to say that Jojo Rabbit is not an interesting film, but I don't think you're going to get the draw to that you're going to get to things like a Marvel movie. And to look at the market, if you have the money, what would you rather invest in? Again, purely business, the gross part of it. Which one would you rather invest in if you had the money? Something like a Marvel movie that is currently eating stuff up because you're doing a good job, and you could possibly make 3, 4, maybe 5 times the return on your investment, versus something like a Jojo Rabbit where you might make double,
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, again, high risk, high reward sort of situation. I see why they're doing what they're doing, but and also to give Marvel credit, they've created good quality films all the way through, and there's a bit of them capitalizing on some stuff, but they make good movies. They're good.
They make safe movies.
I would say
no. That is you're going to lose this every day. They make safe movie. A Marvel movie is a safe movie. They don't take any risks. At the end of the day, the hero's going to win. There's no. You don't have to think when you're in it.
I wouldn't say it's a safe. I'd say Star Wars is safe. If you want to talk about safe,
Marvel
movies.
is equally as safe as Star Wars.
Well, I mean, I would say. Take a look at something like.
No one died.
Okay,
no,
can I
Tony
finish?
died.
Can I finish?
Sorry.
Take a look at a movie like Captain America: Winter Soldier. Right?
Mm-hmm.
They took their entire universe and they turned it on its head. It turns out that Hydra was alive the whole time, and they were inside S.H.I.E.L.D., and all of a sudden, everything we knew about that world was challenged. And things like Infinity War, right? Villain wins at the end of it. Yeah, there's another adaptation of it, but the idea that does it follow a formula? Sure, most stories do.
Right.
But I would say that they at least are taking their characters and pushing them and putting them in positions where it's entertaining, it's engaging, it's exciting. Yes, the hero wins. Yes, I give you that one. But I would say for what the content is, they do a good job of pushing it, especially based on what's come before it. They've taken they've created an entire universe, and I would say they could have played it really safe and really boring right after Avengers, but they kept going. They kept pushing things. They kept, with things. Now, granted, they also have great source material to pull from, but things like Civil War. I mean, you had a situation where you had characters that, Tony and Steve Rogers stopped being friends essentially because of that. And because of that fraction, Thanos was able to win. Like, I look at those sorts of things, and when you piece it all together, yeah, they're fun movies. Yeah, they're mindless, but I wouldn't call them safe necessarily. I would say they take chances and they push themselves. Thor Ragnarok was a fun one tonally. Guardians of the Galaxy, same thing. They take some creative risks with a lot of that stuff. But is it in a sense of like, I don't know, Reservoir Dogs or a Tarantino movie? No. But in if you're doing an apples to apples comparison, Fast and the Furious versus a Marvel movie, what's the safer option? Fast and the Furious.
So have you seen The Rock punch a torpedo?
I have not. Is this what I've been missing?
Doug.
Is this what I've been missing?
Come to my place.
Okay.
We'll watch Rampage. We'll watch Skyscraper.
Oh, no, you come to my place. I own Rampage.
Oh, that's true.
Thanks,
we don't even
Hank.
I hear what you're saying. I agree with you to a point. I still say Marvel, everything said and done, Marvel doesn't take risks. Because the thing is, if they take a risk, then they go against the other thing that you're arguing for, is that they're guaranteed to make a mint when they turn it around. If you take a risk, you might not... Taking a risk means you might lose money. Marvel's not going to do that. Disney's not going to do that.
Wait, so...
If you take a risk, there's a chance you're going to lose money because there's a chance you're going to piss people off. They may have thrown some curveballs into their story here and there, but the superhero movies are extraordinarily formulaic. Mm-hmm. You know how it's going to end. At the end of, at the grand scheme end of the day, you know how it's going to end. Sure, there's going to be some people who betray other people. Tony's going to... they're fighting. It's all setting something up for a larger story, but it's not. None of it is like the movie Parasite, which is up right now, and it's getting just fucking hot. That's a story which is weird. It took chances. It's just an odd. It's not a story you typically see. That's a kind of movie that takes. Jojo Rabbit took a risk when they. It
has Hitler in it.
when Hitler is the imaginary friend, you know what I mean? And there's not. Again, I'm not saying this. Good song.
Not one of my favorites.
I feel like maybe you're thinking that I'm. It's not a personal attack. I'm not saying that.
I think you and I are saying the same thing. Actually,
Marvel, but I disagree that they take risks. I think they play it safe because they want to make that $2 billion.
I think we're saying the same thing actually because in the realm in which Marvel is playing, as far as genre goes, I think they take more risks than the average movie in that genre.
Have you seen Venom? They took a risk.
Man, I tell you what though, fucking what's his face diving in that tank, going after the lobsters. I mean, that guy. No one told him that was a bad movie, but he was going for it.
What?
I forget the lead actor's name for some reason. I can't remember.
What movie are we talking
Venom? Have you not seen Venom?
I have. Who
Dude, he jumps into the fucking lobster tank at the restaurant.
Yeah, I'll tell you that. I watched it on a plane.
There you go.
So
it's a totally different experience.
They
cut out a couple scenes to see if you noticed.
It was hard to watch.
It's very hard to watch.
On a plane.
But the point is that, I don't think it's fair to compare Jojo Rabbit to Marvel.
Why not? They're movies.
You're right.
No, I'm saying
cats and dogs, same thing. I get it.
They both have tails.
They both have tails and four legs. I get it.
We've been over this.
I don't think it's the same thing because they are two very different genres, and they're obviously something like a Marvel movie is going to be more formulaic. It plays to that sort of thing. And also, I mean, if you look at all the Marvel movies, they are one connected string of a story.
Sure.
Told over 11 years. I don't think that's the same thing to compare that to Jojo Rabbit. I don't think it's an apples to apples comparison.
But we also talk about the fact that you have to, like, these movies have to be able to also stand on their own to be a good, because if not, then individually as movies, then they fall apart and they're terrible.
True.
Like, if you have to lump them together, then it takes away every other argument about these individually being good movies.
Well, I think they are also individually good, but also the cool thing about them is that they're all connected.
I will say that I will 100% agree that Marvel innovated the risk that Marvel took was doing an 11-year run of sequels, like and right on top of each other. That never been done before. It will never be done as successfully again ever. And I will 100% give them credit for that. That in and of itself, that was a risk. The individual stories, I think, are, to me, are very safe.
Well, I'd also say it was risky pulling out some of these characters. The Guardians of the Galaxy.
Agreed.
Huge risk. Doctor Strange. Huge risk. Ant-Man. Huge risk. Like, all of these things I think they were all risky and just trying to adapt it. I mean, fucking Thor. God, Iron Man to start with. I mean, that whole franchise was loaded with risk from start to finish. I mean, if Iron Man, Hulk, Thor, Captain America, if any one of those would have failed,
right,
they probably wouldn't have kept going.
The house would have fallen down.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, again, I don't think it's fair to compare a Marvel movie to something like Jojo Rabbit or Parasite. They are two vastly, vastly different things. It's like comparing golf to football. I think that's probably a pretty good comparison.
I'm into it.
It's in a sense where it's like, well, I mean, they're both kind of athletic.
So let me.
Well,
that. You know what, guys? This has been Mind Get Podcast. That was the best arguments of the entire fucking. I want to catch up real quick on because actually Drew and Jared did both jump in and have been having their own side chat about this. So before we transition, Jared says the problem in Australia is we get them 6 to 12 months after the U.S.
That
so
sucks.
A lot of people pirate films. That's really rough. So Drew says, okay, I think we can all agree that the Marvel superhero bubble will eventually bust, which means that these companies are going to take a huge hit. That's why they're all going towards streaming. Disney won't... and Jared says, except Marvel gives us the movies at the same time because we can see them. Oh, so Jared's saying in Australia, most movies come 6 to 12 months. Marvel does everything at the same time, so they're fresh. Drew says Disney won't die. Obviously, they're going to take a hit. It's the same thing that happened in the 30s and 40s when Disney was the first to do full-length animated features. Once everyone else caught up, they started tanking. Disney's big leg up is their gigantic library. Thank you, Justin. It's a factory. They can guarantee they're making money with each film. Marvel takes zero risks. And then Jared goes, Marvel's last risk was Age of Ultron. That's funny. It's a corporation. Robert Iger, the CEO, took home a salary of $60 million last year when their employees make really shitty wages.
60. I think you mean $600 million. Like that guy makes an assload of money.
And then Drew said, "Nope, what? Nope," which was probably in regards to something we said, but because the stream is delayed, I don't know what that was in regards to. Yeah. Although I probably agree.
Probably.
Ant-Man would have been a risk if they kept Edgar Wright. And then, Drew, let's just start our own podcast shitting on Disney and Marvel. We'll call it Mind Blast.
Way to bring it back around.
That is the perfect way to wrap this segment up.
And lights.
And lights, yes. Let's pull lights, and thank you.
I mean, it's again, I agree with a lot of that. I mean, Disney will never die. I mean, financially, it's impossible for them to die. It's just not possible. And
that sounds like a challenge to me.
I mean, whatever.
Challenge extended, Disney. Die.
I always give Disney credit. I mean, they find ways. I mean, there's a dirtiness about them.
Finds a way.
We do it that way. Oof. But it's they are gross in a way that business-wise they find a way to plant a seed and then they just let it grow and grow and grow. And Drew's absolutely right. They are banking on intellectual property. That's what they're doing. I mean, Jesus, I don't know if you guys have seen the new spoiler of the ride at Disney World, the Rise of the Resistance freaking ride they have there. It's fucking bonkers. I think we posted it on our social media recently. It's like a 4 minute.
I totally saw it.
Yeah, sure. 4 minute, it shows you the ride, and it's absolutely unbelievable. Like, it's so incredible what you get with what they built in that ride. And I'm like, that's what they're spending. That's what they want to do. They want to have these properties. They want to have these things available Disney's a nostalgia factory is what it is.
They are.
And they will 100% do it again with Marvel whenever they decide to reboot all this stuff again. They will have all the rights to it, and they will they'll pump that stuff out. So when we're like 50 or 60 and the new Captain America comes back out and the new Iron Man, like they're going to do it again. They absolutely will. That's the part of it where I'm like, you guys are gross. But again, I think we can probably just agree to disagree that I think Marvel's taken way more chances than I think they get credit for in a sense of financially, obviously, what they did. And then, again, all of the unique characters that they brought forward. I mean, how in the world did you get people to like Doctor Strange? Doctor Strange outperformed things like Batman and things like that. How do you get people to like Guardians of the Galaxy?
I'm not arguing that they conceptually took a risk. Bringing these characters forward, yes, that was a risk. I'm 100% in agreement on that. The entire phase 1 through 3, 4? Did they technically do?
I don't even know.
3.
I used to know that stuff like the back of my hand. Kind of lost track.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
Drew, I'm sorry. Again, no. You're going to have to give context to what you're saying these things too.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to agree with you. I just don't know.
Yeah.
There's no chances taken. Okay, got it.
Okay.
So he said, okay. But
good feedback. Thank you. No.
They took risks on a. I agree that on a grander scale they took risks. Like conceptually, bringing Guardians of the Galaxy was a massive risk because who the fuck has heard of them except hardcore comic book nerds?
Yeah,
I'm saying in the actual movie that itself, the story of the movie, I don't think there was a lot of risk taken in that. That's where I'm distinguishing.
What would have been a risk in your mind? Like, what would have constituted a risk? Like, we'll take Guardians of the Galaxy. What story-wise do you think would have been like, ooh, that was really risky?
Kill off Quill.
Kill off Quill?
Right, like in the first 5 minutes. Kill off Quill. And then let's see you make a movie now, fuck.
Let's see you do it now, assholes!
Is it not what we're
Okay, here's the thing. All right.
Wait, let me try again. Again.
Drax is actually Space Hitler.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay, yes. Right.
Go.
I like to think that's how Feige does it. He just goes, hey, guys, in this one, Drax is space... right.
See what happens.
Let's
see what we get from there.
It's a good question. I don't know. I mean, maybe legitimately killing off one of your main characters, like in the first movie, and having to deal with that the rest of the time. I don't know. I don't have, in fairness, I don't have a good example of what I think a good risk would have been. So yeah. I'll cop to that. I don't have that example off the top of my head.
Well, if you think of one, let me know. And I'm not saying that to be shitty. Yeah. I guess I'm just trying to understand.
No, I know. Yeah.
And I open this up to Drew and Jared as well.
Too.
Of like what would constitute something that would be taking a creative risk in that universe? Because again, I don't. It's a very fair question. I just don't know. I think story-wise, they did a pretty good job with it as far as overarching things that happened and everything like that. So.
I was incredibly entertained.
Oh yeah.
Again, I want to make it abundantly clear that I'm not saying I don't like.
I think a couple $1 billion shows that a lot of people were entertained. I
loved these movies, and I will still love them. I'm not. And again, before all the fanboys jump into whatever posting on our social, I love these movies. I'm not shitting on them.
Yeah, and just again to beat the dead horse here, I think in the blockbuster universe, Marvel stands above and beyond as far as creative risk taking, and to me, it seemed less about cashing in. Sony seems like they're cashing in.
100%.
And doing a bad job of it.
DC too. I mean, if you really want to boil it down, I mean,
Fox did a pretty bad job of it too. Yeah. So I look at those and I was like, those are lazy movies that lack a lot of creativity and things like that. So when I look at that landscape of stuff that's out there, and then I look at Marvel, again, if you're doing an apples to apples comparison, I feel like Marvel takes a lot more risks and does a lot more to move their story. Again, they told a story over 11 years. I mean, culminating in that beautiful portal scene moment where I'm like, fuck, everybody's here. They're coming out of the portals. Howard the Duck was in that. And it's like, what? Holy shit!
I've still only ever seen that movie once.
Oh God!
I need to go back. I need to get back on that.
That's so good. And I look at that. I was like, you know what, Drew, you're right, but you can't take away that scene from me. You can't. You can't take away that moment. You can't take away the feeling I have when I watch Hawkeye. I realize that his family has faded away, and he has that moment of a guy who goes back into his assassin mode where he's like, something's wrong. And
he turns into Ronin.
He just immediately, he's like, babe, but he's looking around. You just see his serious face. He's like, something's wrong. I'm like, oh my God.
You just see the man snap.
Yeah. Like, ah! It's just everything, the way he feels when he gets a chance to see his family again, just for a brief second. And he comes, like, the fact that, you know, he has to let Natasha die, and he comes, like, there's so much in that where I'm like, this movie pays off, unlike Rise of the Skywalker. Now, if we want to talk,
Nate, take my portals.
Never.
Did real quick, I don't know if I ever asked you this in the moment before we pivot. Poor Stanley. Yeah.
Yeah. R.I.P. brother.
Would you have rather had Hawkeye die, or do you think Natasha was the right choice to die?
Well, the thing that sucks for me,
that scene, I was so back and forth. I'm like, oh, he's gonna die, but kind of good, and then oh, she's gonna die, but that makes sense. Oh, he's gonna die. Like I definitely went back and forth in that scene.
For a second, I was like, what's gonna happen? I'm like, oh, that's right, he's got a TV show. He's gonna be okay, and that's what sucks about following that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, oh fuck, he's gonna be all right. But the more I watched it, the more I realized that really Natasha didn't have much going for herself, and really that was her sacrifice. Her life was miserable, and she had nothing to live for. And you could say the same thing for Hawkeye, but you know, even if they did it, if they got everything right, Natasha still wouldn't have much other than what she did for a living. Whereas Hawkeye had a family, so he had a future. So I was like, that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense.
And I do appreciate that, you know, and how she is and everything like that. There's just so much more. Like, the more I watch it, I'm like, there's actually a lot of payoff. Because also, we watched Age of Ultron, which I definitely think is one of the weaker movies.
100%.
But there's a huge payoff. Like, they did such a good job where Tony's like, you know, at the beginning of Endgame, and he's like, I talked about a suit of armor around the world, regardless of people's freedoms, but you didn't want it. And what'd you say? You said we'd lose together. It was like, no, we lost. You know, it's like he pulls back all this stuff, and even the part where, you know, Tony fights Thanos in Infinity War, and you realize this is a culmination of psychology that's been working against Tony since Avengers, where he went into that portal, and Thanos has been fucking in his head. He didn't know who he was, but this guy is the embodiment of everything that's been messing with him, having anxiety attacks and panic attacks and stuff like that, and he fights him and he loses, and then he does it again in Endgame. He's tackling him. You realize that's got to be really hard for him to do that, because the second time, you know, he remembered Thanos beat the shit out of him,
right? And he's old,
and he has a lot on the line. So like, there's just a lot of little things that I think paid off, and it's very special to me. So again, I don't take that shit personally. It is what it is. You either like it or you don't.
But wrong.
So real quick, I want to talk about our minute this week, which is going to be from yours truly. I just recently rewatched John Carpenter's The Thing. So if we're talking about medium to low budget films, if you haven't seen it, it's a 1982 remake of a 50s movie, and it still holds up, man. I bought it, and I haven't watched it for a while.
It's a terrifying movie.
It is a wonderful horror film.
It really is, and it's one of the few horror films that I like.
Oh,
because I'm not a horror person.
Same,
but that one, I'm just like, fuck it. I think it's because it's more thriller.
Okay, so you think it's more thriller? What about it? What about that element? What about that? What makes it? What about it being a thriller makes it more interesting to you?
I think it's because it's more of a psychological thriller.
Fucking yeah, it is.
And I like Silence of the Lambs. That was one of the first horror movies I ever got into. And if you want to call it horror movie, but that to me was still more of a psychological thriller than a horror movie per se, even though Beth would vehemently disagree with me. She's like, that is a terrifying, scary horror movie.
Like, you see a man's mangina.
Right.
So.
That's gross.
That's gross.
Gross. No, I think... Drew says he thinks it's great because of the landscape.
Oh, dude,
just
yeah.
Desolate,
isolated,
you're out nowhere,
fucking cold,
and that's part of the terrifying. But I think I like anything that's more psychological. The older I get, the harder I'm actually realizing the harder time I have with watching just straight torture, gore. Yeah. Like I don't like watching someone slowly get their head cut off. Even though I know it's fake, I have a really hard time with it. Yeah. I don't know why. I have a hard time with it.
It's gore for the sake of gore.
But emotionally, it hits me in a very weird emotional place. This is very just like it activates all your brain going, okay, so it passed from him. Wait, no, he's acting funny. Is it maybe him? Oh, he's going off on his own. Like, you're constantly guessing.
Yeah.
And I love that.
For those of you who've not seen it, first of all, get on it.
Right.
Second of all, essentially it takes place in Antarctica. It's this research station, and these bunch of dudes are up there studying some stuff, and they get a visit from a dog. And a bunch of Norwegian guys are chasing this dog in a helicopter trying to kill it. And they are shouting at the Americans as they approach with a gun. So the Americans don't know what to do. They don't speak Norwegian, so they kill that guy. They let the dog in.
As good Americans do.
As good Americans do. Stand my ground.
You're not going to invade our laboratory.
And turns out that the dog is actually an alien. And not only that, an alien that can perfectly replicate other things as it consumes them. So what I love most about the film is it's a story about paranoia. And that's what it is. 100% through and through is what does paranoia do to people? And I think that's what I appreciate so much about it is watching people unravel given the isolation in the landscape. They can't go anywhere because it's fucking cold. They're there for an extended period of time, and then something happens, and you don't know who to trust. Mm-hmm. You get to see it's almost like something from The Dark Knight where the Joker's like, I'll show you what happens to people when they're allowed to do what they're going to do, and that's what happens is you don't know who to trust. Mm-hmm. You know, and what I love about it, too, is even John Carpenter and the cinematographer and stuff like that, people ask, because there's a shot early on the film where the dog goes and infects somebody, but you just see their silhouette, and you don't know who it is. And they ask John Carpenter, who was it? Who was patient zero? He goes, I don't know. He goes, that's not the
so he hasn't even...
It's not what the movie's about. He goes, the movie's about paranoia in that you just don't know at any point in time who's who. Yeah. And the final, I'm going to spoiler it. The final scene of the movie is also one of my favorites.
Yes.
Because, the whole thing is that this creature can imitate people. It consumes them, and it's a perfect imitation. You would never know. The only way you know is just like every single cell of their body will try to consume and replicate something else. And at the end of the movie, the lovely Kurt Russell and what's the other guy's name? David
Attenborough.
No. Lee Roth. No. Crap. He's got an amazing voice. He's awesome. But essentially, there's two guys left. They've destroyed
Keith David.
Keith David's character Childs has ran off at one point in time, and usually if someone's by themselves, you just don't know what's going on. Do they get whatever? And the facility's burning. It's nighttime. It's going to be 100 below. Kurt Russell's essentially wounded, and Childs he's sitting there, and they're basically both looking at each other. These two characters don't like each other either,
right? And
they're looking at each other, and they're like trying to decide: is the other person assimilated? Are they infected? And you just don't know. And they kind of share a drink, and then it just ends, and you just don't know. And people have asked John Carpenter, "Who?
Right?
Yeah, what?" And he just goes, "I don't know."
Was it? Yeah. Did they die? Was it poison? Did they shoot each? They want to know how it ended and who was infected, and
And there's amazing fan theories.
Oh yeah.
And I guess the cinematographer threw in a clue.
Oh, did he? I actually didn't know
I'm
that.
not gonna say it. I won't spoil that for you. But there's a telltale thing he did as a cinematographer. It's very, very subtle to tell whether or not someone is assimilated or not. And
I got to go back and watch it again
I'll tell
now.
You off mic.
Okay, good.
I ruined everything else, but for some reason I won't ruin that. But there's also a great fan theory at the end as to why people think Kurt Russell's character is still good, but Childs has been assimilated.
Okay.
It's very, very interesting. But I rewatched that movie recently, and I was like, fucking A, this is a great, great movie. And for the time that was made, the practical effects, some of them are still a little wonky, but goddamn, the body horror and stuff in it, the special effects are fantastic. It's pretty gross and terrifying at the same time. And I think what psychologically the part of that is just the idea of paranoia, not knowing who to trust.
Right.
And these guys make some questionable decisions in the film where I'm like, just fucking stay together. You stay here and guard the place. I'm like, why don't you all go together? Why are you splitting up? Three of us are going, but you stay here by yourself. Why? Go 2 and 2, man.
Time out, man. That's a terrible idea.
I was like,
let's not do that.
Because at that point, they know none of them are assimilated. So I was like, you all should just go together. What the fuck? But I love the idea of exploring those different things, especially human nature and the idea of what people will most likely do for the sake of survival and what that can mean to relationships and what they don't act rationally. and what that will make people do. I think it's fascinating to me, and that movie does a good job. I love movies that use something like this as a fantastic vehicle to explore those different parts of human nature. And I'm like, oh, what a cool way. Like, that's why I like so much about District 9. It wasn't too subtle, but it's like, hey, this is kind of about racism.
100%, yeah.
But it's like, amazing to see in that movie. People are, just so vehemently like, oh, the aliens, they gotta go. I'm like, weren't you guys just like hating on each other not that long ago? They're like, get the fucking bugs out of here. It's like, what? But using that fantastic way to talk about all these sorts of things. Harry Potter, to a certain extent, too, about, obviously racism, bloodlines, things like that. Like, I'm always interested, more so like with stuff like this, so we're like, fucking A.
So you're saying that you're interested when there's nuance in a script 100%. And when there's risks taken to tell the story of nuance.
What do you know? I am a person of many, many likes. What do you know? I'm not one. I'm not one note. High five.
Yay, high five.
Yay, high five. Same thing like Ex Machina.
I'm sure if Drew were here, he would be giving you a high five right now.
I doubt it.
Not based off of what he's meant.
No. Ex Machina is another good one too, right? That was a
Actually, I never saw that movie.
Really?
I was high on my list when it came out, and it still is.
You got 2 Star Wars characters in there, General Hux and Oscar Isaac, who plays.
It's a trap, right? That guy.
No, that's not.
Admiral Akbar.
Admiral Akbar's like, don't go in there.
Right.
She's not real.
It's so weird that they cast a puppet.
I'm Ex Machina. That is not how this. Sir, get out of here.
Nope.
No, that's not how this works at all. But
Who let him on set?
Yeah, right. Well, I think was it the movie? Not to go back to it, but was it A16? Is that the movie theater or the movie?
A24.
A24.
Yeah.
Close. Those numbers.
Well,
I feel like that's a wonderful. Whenever they put out a film, whenever they do, I'm like, ooh, what is this?
Oh,
because it's going to be interesting.
That's absolutely. Drew and I have had this conversation where, like, if A24 is attached, we're like, I'll give it a look.
I was like, I will absolutely watch the trailer. Show me more.
They've got a great track record.
They do a wonderful job of telling a cool story, and I'm like, I'm in.
Yeah.
And again, low budget. Wonderful acted, creative storytelling, absolutely love it, 100%.
Agreed.
What do you know? We agreed. We got there.
There's an interesting thing that's happened in the chat.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. There's been suggestions thrown out.
Okay.
Suggestions for
Throwdown! Hey, just so you guys know, we have a poll feature on our Twitch page. And I think moving forward, what we might do is actually maybe we'll do it now. I don't know.
Can I find that here?
I don't know. Can you?
On the activity feed?
Fucking idiot.
Oh man.
I was like, because that'd be fun in the future. Is to use my feelings. I did say that extremely aggressively. I apologize. But to essentially, maybe we can throw the suggestions up there and you guys can vote and see who's what. Maybe we do it now, maybe we don't.
And we will figure out. Edit your well, we'll figure out how to monitor this at some point, guys. So you do that thing.
Do that thing you do.
Well, first and foremost, Drew had a throwdown suggestion earlier in the day. The thing is, it was already played out in a conversation we had. So I said I should give Doug this throwdown, play it out, so there's no discussion or argument, and then just sit there in silence until Doug ends the show.
There you go.
But it was Justin versus Drew.
What?
Justin versus Drew was the throwdown.
All right, let me put it on the poll.
This, I could. It's not going to be funny for me to tell you how it plays out, but can you do 2 polls?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the first poll, and the actual fan throwdown that we got in the Twitch chat right now is, it's a conceptual one.
Oh, great.
It's not, so take it with a grain of salt. Jared wants to see Drew versus the entire MCU. And I have my arguments. I have my arguments for who would win.
Okay. Well, we've got the polls up there, ladies and gentlemen. Hop on in and go to twitch.tv/mindgappodcast. Scroll on down. You should see our Twitch picks. You should be able to see it there. And go ahead and cast your vote.
Jared said, can we vote for our favorite host? I want to make Mummy and Daddy fight. I'm assuming Mummy is Mommy.
I call dibs on Mummy.
Fine. All right. I'll get the toilet paper. We'll wrap them up. Yeah. So I'm going to say let's go with Drew versus the entire MCU, and 100% Drew wins. And here's why.
Okay. He's real.
He's got chutzpah.
He's real.
He's got chutzpah, Doug.
So are we imagining a portal sequence where all the MCU
100%,
comes out and it's just Drew standing on the other side?
So Drew is...
Drew just literally goes, I'm not going to play. And he just walks away, and they're like, oh, shit, we lost.
And that's it.
He goes to his office, closes the door, turns on Kelly Clarkson, and then just starts typing away at emails.
And he just sits there and does...
By the way, I heard that song at the eye doctor the other day. Kelly Clarkson's whatever.
Or whatever. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger?
Yeah, Stronger.
Yeah.
And I immediately just time traveled back to that,
there.
Vine we made where we were at the office and that was just playing and you were doing this very lethargically while drinking your coffee and I was just moving myself back and forth, and Drew does.
Do we have a video of that?
It's a Vine we made. One of the handful we made.
I love it so much.
I immediately time traveled. I was like, oh, I remember this song.
That was one of the best work environments of, save for a few things that happened there of my life. So I think, Drew's sitting, he's writing, he's typing at his computer, he's conceptualizing a story, he's writing it, and all of a sudden he just hears behind him, and these portals start opening up. And he turns around, and he's standing there. For some reason, he's got a pen in hand, and he's standing there as if it's his weapon. And everyone from the MCU comes into his apartment, in the living room area of his apartment. It's very crowded. And he's got home turf advantage. And he's got his stick-to-itiveness. He is not backing down. Drew's got moxie.
Drew's stubborn is what you're saying, is what I'm hearing.
He's got chutzpah. Drew will not be told otherwise.
I would just say
Drew also chimes in and says, yes, I always win.
I just say that Drew is pure lack. His superpower is apathy. Because he's just like, I don't care. Whatever. And because he's so apathetic, it will bum out the rest of the MCU. They're like, wait, why are we here?
They're actually sad they don't get to fight.
Well, they look at they're like, what are we doing? Like, we were told this was the greatest evil in all of the cinematic universe, and he just doesn't even care.
We wasted portals on this?
They're like, I guess we can just go. Because Thor's like, I could just hit him, and he'll die. You know?
But will he? Thor will always wonder.
Ant-Man will be like, I could just get small, come up into his butt, and expand and explode him.
So, I sent you the article of how that's not true, right? Someone measured the tensile strength of the small or whatever the interior of the.
They don't know what Thanos' tensile strength is.
They were able to assume based off of it's that one dude with the really long hair.
I know who you're talking
who does
about.
Like really
who looks
accurate.
Like Thor?
Yes, exactly. Yes. Yeah, and it's like shockingly accurate scientific shit with fake shit.
Yeah,
right.
He's like,
with fake information.
The sphincter would not allow that to happen.
Oh no, full on Ant-Man would die. It was like Ant-Man stands no chance against Thanos' rectum. Damn near killed him.
To quote Jared here, Drew is inevitable. So I mean, I guess. I mean, Drew's sheer his sheer
apathy, will of apathy.
It's just a sheer will of apathy. He's just like, I imagine like it's a situation like Peter Pan where it's like clap to bring Tinkerbell back, and Drew just doesn't because he's like, I don't believe in you. He's like in the movie Hook where Robin Williams goes, I don't believe in fairies! And like Tinkerbell falls over. That's what he does. He's like, I don't believe in superheroes! And they all just sort of like put their heads down and walk back in their portals. And he's
to bring me back to life. No.
And he goes, he's like, where's Simon? And he just like starts petting Simon.
Oh my God! Fucking Drew killing Tinkerbell might be the best thing that happened in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
I love that so
line
much.
out of quote context is my favorite thing ever. I think Drew killing Tinkerbell.
Oh my God! Okay, I love that more than I can possibly.
Yeah,
say.
I mean that's really the only way I see that going down.
Yeah,
Drew just on the couch being like, nah,
I
don't believe in you.
Everyone's
people
like,
are like,
ha!
They make some.
All right.
He makes him have an existential crisis.
He's
like, what do you mean? He goes, you are make-believe. Someone drew you decades ago, and then they put you on a film. You're basically like a pantheon of gods, and I don't believe in you. Go away! And they're like, okay.
So you're saying Drew basically has like a last action hero moment and wills them back into the cinema and away from him.
Exactly.
Drew for the win.
Also, Drew defeats God, apparently, and that's by that same logic. I don't believe in you! God ceases to exist.
God goes, oh.
Shit.
All right.
Drew for the win.
Back to Spaghetti Monster, back to the sky.
Oh, what a great episode.
Drew for the
Sound like you said Jew for the win. Either way, I'm okay with
Well,
it.
as long as God's banished back to the sky. Yeah, we have fun, folks. It's a chuckle factory over here.
We like to have fun
we're kidding around.
here.
We're having fun.
Yeah, that was good. That was good stuff.
So he... Did you see what he goes? So I can beat the entire MCU, but I can't beat Dr.
That's
Drew.
goddamn right, because Dr. Drew is real, and he's stacked, and he's
ripped,
hung.
and he's hung. Drew. And also, it's not the MCU universe. That's like saying ATM machine.
Yeah, right? God damn it, man. Read a fucking book.
Speaking of books,
Yes.
I have a recommendation for
Let's
this
do
week.
it. What do you got?
Leaves of Grass by Walt Whitman.
Sounds
Guy's talented.
thrilling.
Also, Breaking Bad and Schitt's Creek season 6.
Nice.
What do you got?
I just started watching The Outsider on HBO.
Oh, I've heard, someone just mentioned that today to me.
Not only did the trailer for it look great, but I've heard great things about it. I am going against my better judgment. I'm watching it before it's done, but I'm like a few episodes behind because
Okay.
I like to watch a complete story at my own pace. I don't like waiting a week at a time. Whatever.
You don't like that old methodology.
I don't. I really don't. So I started watching it today, and goddamn, I like it. It's got Ben Mendelsohn in it. It's got that famous guy. He was in. Man, I can't remember shit right now.
Keith David?
Nope. I wish it was. Like, oh yeah, that guy. He was in Arrested Development. The main character in Arrested Development.
Jason Bateman?
There it is.
Okay.
I was like, Patrick Bateman. That's not it. That's American Psycho. He's in it. There's a lot of. It's fascinating so far. It looks like a real thriller.
Okay.
So
what made you gonna go against your not your better judgment, but like what you normally do and actually watch this before it's done?
It's also a Stephen King, based on a Stephen King thing,
Okay.
and that immediately pulled me in. I was like, okay,
fair
and
enough.
I've heard good reception to it, so I'm like, fuck it. I'm like kind of in between books right now, and I was looking for something. And I'm like, maybe I'll just start watching this.
I will say that I am 20 minutes away from being done with The Irishman.
Holy shit!
Yeah.
Well, actually, you're
big
probably more about 8 minutes away because the last 12 minutes is credits.
Is there an after credit sequence?
There is not.
Okay, good. Well, Scorsese. How funny would that be if
How
Scorsese?
amazing would that be?
If he was just like,
how amazing would that be?
yeah, but wink.
And he's
zap.
just like, oh my god, that would be so funny
That
if
would
he
have been
did that.
hysterical.
He'd be
All right, so I'm about 10 minutes away from the ending of the movie.
What do you think so far?
It's a movie.
I'm going to tell you, whatever happens in the last 10 minutes is not going to change anything.
Well, except that he goes, if you're not invested, if you don't like it at this point, you're good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't dislike it. And we can save this full discussion for when I finish this last 8 minutes and see Hoffa get whacked.
Yeah.
Or allude to Hoffa getting whacked, from what I understand. But it's not. I'm struggling to understand why it's up for Best Picture. I'll say that.
Can't wait to talk about that with
Yes.
you. Because remember, there was that one scene that I just didn't understand. That was like, why is this happening?
Oh wait,
Is
did
this-
you tell me what it was?
I didn't.
Okay, so
I talked
now
to Sam about it.
So now we need to go back and talk
Yeah,
about that off mic. But
exactly.
yes, so full review of The Irishman, full debate of The Irishman coming up.
Coming soon.
Yes,
To your
we'll make that
ear.
the minute maybe.
Yeah, I don't know if that's going to be a minute, but we can try.
Right. I mean, we'll do
put it on the list.
This is the minute in air quotes.
There we go.
Yeah.
Exactly. Called the episode
Right.
3232 or whatever. Awesome. Well, as always, Twitch, you guys are great. Jared and Drew, thanks so much for contributing. You made this. In fact, if anything, Drew really put us down the road on this.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I was going to divert somewhere else, but we'll save that for another time.
I'm
So-
very excited to get to it, by the way.
Oh, agreed, absolutely.
And it's
So-
actually something when we get to it, I want Drew to be on to hear
100%.
that too, because this,
I think I know where Drew stands on it.
Yes.
But I appreciate it's always fun hearing from the folks on Twitch. So if you guys are interested in joining us while we record this live, head over to twitch.tv/MindGapPodcast. We fucking love interacting with you guys. It's the absolute best and feel like it just actually makes this show so much better. So please. And not only that, share us around too in the Twitch realm. We'd love to get some more subscribers because at some point we might be able to get the old affiliate status, and who knows, we might be able to actually earn a few bucks on this, which would be pretty cool. So if you guys could help get some folks to just subscribe to us on here, it'd be fantastic. We'd love it. Also, check us out on our social medias, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at MindGap Podcast. Also, check us out on YouTube. We post all of our episodes there, as well as some other fun content. So, as always, like us, share us, subscribe. And honestly, if you have something you want to contribute, if you have some thoughts, you got a hot take on something, and you want to say, hey, I have this one thing that you can tell us in a minute or less, your thoughts on something, or you think we should talk about real quickly, Shout it out to us on our social medias. Let us know. We'd love to include it in the show. Justin, you're somewhere digitally.
Yeah, that's right. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Justin_Michael, spelled Mikel. It's the fun way of spelling it. While you're in the online realm, check us out on Apple Podcast, on Stitcher, on
Spotify,
and on Google Podcast, wherever you can consume the old podcasts. And like Doug said, share us around, subscribe, rate, review, all those good things. And then 2east8th.com/mindgap. And then just keep an eye on all 2east8th stuff, because hopefully Drew and I have got some cool stuff coming up this year.
For the record, Throwdown Justin versus Drew. Same thing applies. Drew wins. His apathy makes you question your existence, and you just walk away.
It's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I take it.
Yeah, you will take it.
I'll take it so hard.
That's what Drew says. All right, gang.
Or then Drew goes, or not, I don't care.
All right, guys. Well, thanks again for listening. We look forward to seeing you next week. And you guys have just a dandy fucking week.
Mind Gap Podcast.